So I think we'll go ahead and begin. People are going to be streaming in as we go, but wanted to welcome you all to join us. My name is Stuart Coleman. If we can go back one slide, Yoko. I am the Executive Director of WAI, which stands for Wastewater Alternatives and Innovations, but also is the Hawaiian word for water, and that's the heart of our mission, maintaining good water quality. And I want to thank you all for joining tonight. This is a PSA that I mentioned that we do to remind people that cesspools anywhere near the coast or bodies of water are like toilets on the beach. And so we did this PSA just to have a humorous reminder of, how serious this issue is. All right, thank you, Yoko. And we're hoping that our board member, Mahina Paishan Duarte, was going to be able to do an opening only, but she couldn't join us. But instead, she sent a document that I thought would be really good to read. And this is the Hawaii Law of the Aloha Spirit, which is from Chapter 5 of the Hawaii Revised Statute. So it's encoded into law. And it's just a good reminder. We like to begin these things with reminding everyone why we're here. Aloha Spirit is the coordination of mind and heart within each person. It brings each person to the self. Each person must think and emote good feelings to others. These are traits of character that express the charm, warmth, and sincerity of Hawaiian people and Hawaii's people. It was the working philosophy of Native Hawaiians and was presented as a gift to the people of Hawaii. Aloha is more than a word of greeting or farewell or salutation. Aloha means mutual regard and affection and extends warmth and caring with no obligation in return. Aloha is the essence of relationships in which each person is important to every other person for collective existence. Aloha means to hear what is not said, to see what cannot be seen, and to know the unknowable. So mahalo to Mahina for sharing that, and mahalo to you all for joining us tonight for our town hall for the Kea'au area. This is our WAI team, and I am very, very privileged and lucky to work with such incredibly talented people. We have Christina Comfort, who's our program manager, and she is streaming in live from all the way from Guatemala tonight and staying up very late. We have Joachim Yoko, you can call him Schneider. He's our senior project manager, coordinator, and is a wastewater engineer and extremely talented. One of our newest team members is Sierra Teramura. She's our project coordinator. And then we have Jackie Orsa as our operations coordinator, and she is on the Big Island. And John Anner is our managing director, but he couldn't be here tonight. So is everybody else hearing me clearly? Someone said there's a lag. Okay, perfect. So thank you for joining us. The WAI's mission is, as I mentioned, to protect water quality. That's the heart of what we do. And we do that by reducing sewage pollution from cesspools and failing septic systems around the state in order to restore kind of healthy watersheds by really introducing more innovative and affordable eco-friendly solutions to wastewater management. And our vision is to help Hawaii's homeowners and communities, the state, the counties, with this really difficult process of upgrading cesspools and failing septic systems and coming up with much better options. And we do this through our 5 programs or pillars: innovative technology, financial resources, policy and advocacy, outreach and education, and pilot projects. And we'll touch on each of those tonight. So we are delighted to have tonight with us Representative Greggor Ilagan and Councilmember Ashley Kierkiewicz and Councilmember Matt Kanealii-Kleinfelder, as well as Ramsey Mansour, who's the director of the County of Hawaii Department of Environmental Management, and the team at Ridge-to-Reefs, one of our nonprofit partners who will be presenting a little bit later on. But at this point, I wanted to turn it over to our esteemed legislators and just ask them if they want to share a word or two and to welcome you all. Representative Ilagan, do you want to go first?
Stuart?
Yes.
I think Greggor's going to be on a little bit later. I was just texting with him. He's on Oahu, it's legislative session, and he's stuck in traffic, but he'll be logging on really shortly. But I know he sends his regards and he'll be hopping on real soon. Just aloha kako, everyone. I'm Ashley Kierkiewicz, council member for District 4 Puna Makai Mahalo Nui WAI team for reaching out to all of our offices to just be in a position to share information about the opportunity to solve for this really persisting problem. I'm really hopeful seeing that we have folks from the county here on this call that we can find solutions that are affordable and equitable, because this is something that really is a significant issue in the Puna region. There is so much of money available on the federal side. Ramsey, Director Mansour is very aware of this and is going to be doing everything he can to be securing that funding to update our island's wastewater infrastructure. But we have to think about what we are going to be doing. So helping all of the households in what I think are very low and moderate income communities, ensure that they have access to tools to convert their systems. So just really appreciate your team mobilizing all of the experts to connect with us, share information, and hoping that we can, as county members, come up with significant tools that'll make a difference so that people can make that conversion. Thanks, Stuart.
Mahalo, Ashley. Thank you so much. Matt?
Mahalo, Stuart. Thanks for having us tonight. Nice to tie in the government end with kind of the private sector and trying to figure out what we can do to help. For those of you who don't know, and happy St. Patrick's Day, first off. I'm Matt Kanealii-Kleinfelder, council member for the greater Kea'au and Puna area, or District 5. As we all know, wastewater and wastewater systems is just one of the biggest looming issues that we have in our county and our state. Even across the nation. In Puna specifically, we have some really unique challenges. Our environment, our groundwater systems, soil types. We're all living on lava rock. All of these different components make it both costly and difficult to do the septic conversions that are coming to us via state-imposed deadlines, and also just as a way of protecting our aina. So given the size of Puna, I think we all can agree that a county sewage collection system is years away. And with that state-imposed deadline that I talked about earlier, the rise in costs, supply chain disruption, construction requirements, we really got to dig into what septic systems look like in our area, what the cost is to our residents, how government helps, and we all got to work together to find solutions to the challenges. We always say that, but tonight, I really appreciate the opportunity to sit down with your team, with WAI, or wastewater alternatives and innovations, to kind of learn what you guys can offer for us. And I just really appreciate the opportunity and be happy to, sharing not all that I can, but just also to be here and kind of listen to the conversation. So thank you again, Stuart. You got an amazing team, and I appreciate being here tonight.
Mahalo, Matt, and thanks for reminding us about St. Patty's Day. When the water turns green in Boston and the river, it's very acceptable. When it turns green out here, it's not a healthy sign. So thank you both for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Yoko.
Thank you. Yes, thank you everybody for joining us. We have some small interactive elements to this presentation in the form of an anonymous survey that I'm about to start right here. So you should see it on your screens right about now. The first one here, the first out of 3, is very short, only 2 questions, anonymous, like I said, and it's single choice. So the first question, single choice: do you think that cesspools pose a problem in Hawaii? Yes or no, or not sure. And the second one, complete the sentence: I have heard that, and then you can choose multiple options. The first one is, sewer will come to my neighborhood and take care of the cesspool problem. Number 2, I do not have to worry about my cesspool until 2050. Number 3, I need to convert my cesspool to a better system, or none of the above. And I think there's Rep. Ilagan right here joining us. Thank you for joining. We have people responding. You're doing a great job. 50% have already responded, 57, 60%. It's going really quick. Thank you all. Gonna keep it going just a little more. Yeah.
Yeah, while we're waiting for people to respond, Rep. Ilagan, if you'd like to just say a couple of words, we really appreciate you joining us. I don't know if your connection's good. I know you were stuck in traffic.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I just want to say thank you for being here. Sorry I was late. Oahu traffic is a bit scary. So I just thank you for coming and wanting to learn. I'm available anytime you guys need help. All right, you guys take care.
Thank you so much. Mahalo.
Perfect timing. Good idea, Stuart. Yes, so I'm going to end this poll in 5 seconds. So everybody who's still thinking about it, please complete your selections. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to end it, and then I'm going to share the results with you all and read them out. The first question was, do you think that cesspools pose a problem in Hawaii? Overwhelming majority, 95% said yes, nobody said no, and 1 person said not sure. And the second question, complete the sentence. We have 73% saying they need to, or they've heard that they need to convert their cesspool to a better system. About a quarter of people said they've heard they don't have to worry until 2050. 14% none of the above, and 9% sewer will come to my neighborhood and take care. So thank you all for participating. Good job on poll 1 out of 3. And I'm going to pass it back over to, I believe, Stuart.
Yes. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for taking that survey. It helps us really figure out where people are on this issue. And to kind of start with the basics, just to make sure that we are all on the same page, want to just differentiate, distinguish between a cesspool and a septic tank. A cesspool is basically just a hole in the ground that's lined on the sides, quite often with tile or brick, and it's open at the bottom. So all the waste from a household, from all the toilets, sinks, showers, washing machine, dishwasher goes in, and there's no treatment that happens, and it just goes out through the bottom. And on the Big Island, since there's a lot of porous volcanic soils and rock, it just goes right through all the solids and liquids. And so that's where the problem is, because all the pathogens, nutrients, and contaminants just go right down into the groundwater. A septic tank, on the other hand, is an enclosed tank. And all that wastewater comes into the tank, and the solids settle to the bottom. And then the liquids are filtered out, and they go into a drain field or a leach field. And believe it or not, that's where most of the treatment happens. The microbes in the soil, if it's designed correctly, eat up all the waste and really take care of a lot of the pathogens. Unfortunately, what it doesn't do is take care of the nutrients. So that's kind of a distinguishing factor between those. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat, and our staff can try to answer them as we go. Just to kind of give you a background, our legislators have been working on this issue hard for the last 7 years. We formed a large coalition a number of years ago and passed Act 120 in 2015, and that banned the construction of new cesspools and offered a tax break of $10,000. Hawaii was the last state, and this is probably very important for you to remember, last state in the country to ban cesspools by almost 4 decades. So we're kind of in last place with that. We allowed a kind of substandard system, which shouldn't have been allowed to continue going. And so that's why there's the urgency now, and all these bills are moving forward. The next year, we passed Act 125, and that mandated the upgrade of all cesspools by 2050 and required DOH to complete a priority upgrade areas report. And I serve on the cesspool conversion working group, and that's what we're working on. Act 132 created that cesspool conversion working group, and we've been working for the last 3 years, and we'll be coming up with a list of recommendations and reports in this year. And now we're working on a number of bills at the legislature, and some of them have to do with finance, trying to create grant programs to help low to moderate income folks. We had bills with tax breaks, and then we're going to try to bring that back. They didn't survive this session, but we've got a point of sale bill that would just say, during point of sale, cesspools should be converted within a year or two after that date. and a number of other bills that we can, show those to you if you're interested in supporting us. But for the Cesspool Conversion Working Group, we have set up 4 priority areas, and this was done by the Department of Health, and we're in the middle of kind of fine-tuning these. The first priority one is, these cesspools are in areas that they have documented impacts to drinking water. And we'll talk about the effects of those that are really serious, as well as the health and welfare of our sensitive streams and coastal waters. And priority 2 is their potential impacts to drinking water in certain areas, as if there are wells. And we'll share a disturbing statistic from the Big Island a little bit later about that. Priority 3 is potential impacts to these ecologically sensitive waters and coastal areas, including coral reefs and areas where we have endangered species and reduced fish populations. All total, we have 88,000 cesspools across the state, and 49,000 of them are on the Big Island. So this is why we're so glad that you joined us tonight, because it's a really serious issue. The Big Island has the most by far, and these discharge 27 million gallons per day of untreated wastewater. And so on the Big Island, there are 4 priority areas. Kea'au, this area there are potential impacts to drinking water, and that's really serious, and that's what we want to talk about. But the other ones, they're potential impacts, and those could be upgraded and most likely will to a priority 1 or 2 when we finish this reporting. Excuse me. I'm gonna.
Stuart, would you like me to hop in here? This is Christina. Okay, thank you. So I hope you guys can hear me okay. As Stuart mentioned, I'm traveling right now. I'm calling in from a retreat center in Guatemala. So just let me know if anything gets off with the sound. Okay, thank you. All right, so what we're looking at right now is the Kea'au area. And the blue shaded area is all of the cesspools that are contained in the priority area. So each of those red dots is a cesspool, and that blue shaded area is the designated priority area level 2, which means that there is a threat to drinking water in this region. As you can see, especially as you get closer to the coast, the cesspools in this area get very dense. So there's a lot of cesspools in a small geographic area. The priority area has about 9,300 cesspools total, discharging about 4.9 million gallons per day of effluent. And this is untreated effluent, basically going right through the lava rock quickly into the groundwater. You can see listed here your representatives, senator, and council members, just so you can all be aware of who's representing in this region. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the health and environmental risks of cesspools. So there are different types of environmental health and environmental risks. Cesspools can affect drinking water, and they can also affect coastal waters. So on the public health side, for human health issues, drinking water pollution can be in the form of different pollutants and pathogens that can get into drinking water sources, for instance, your wells. And also nitrate is a type of pollutant that comes from wastewater that can get into drinking water. And nitrate can be connected to increased cancer risk. There's also, you can encounter pathogens in the environment, such as in the coastal ocean, where you can go swimming. If you go swimming in polluted water, you can get sick to your stomach, you can get infections on your skin or ear and eye infections, those kind of things that can come from encountering wastewater polluted water. On the environmental side, nutrients that get into our reef environment can lead to invasive algae overgrowth. And this basically means that invasive algae will overtake native limu and overtake corals, which degrades the Hawaii coral reef ecosystem. There's also evidence that sewage pollution can lead to increased rates of coral disease and reduced coral cover overall, as well as changes in fish behavior and other harmful effects on the ecosystem. And finally, there are contaminants of emerging concern. These are things like chemicals that are found in plastics, chemicals that are found in pharmaceutical products that are getting into the environment and can affect both humans and the ecosystem in ways that we're still learning what those are. We can go to the next slide, please. So I will talk a little bit now more specifically about water quality in the Kea'au region. So as I mentioned before, this region has a risk for drinking water, especially for folks that are on private wells. So the way that we can track whether there's contamination in your water source is using fecal indicator bacteria, or that's one of the ways. There's several, but this is the way that has been used in this region. So fecal indicator bacteria aren't typically the bacteria that are responsible for diseases, but they are found in sewage and they're easy to detect. They're what the US EPA uses. And it's basically tells you that if there's fecal indicator bacteria in the water, other pathogens are likely present and it's possible that you could get sick. So the bacteria that we use is called Enterococcus, and this is something that's in the intestines of mammals. And since humans are mammals, it's a good tracer of when there's wastewater in the system. So in Kea'au, there's a very fast infiltration time from the cesspool to the groundwater. So this means that there's not a lot of time for the waste to get treated and it goes right into the groundwater. And a Department of Health study found that 25% of the wells they sampled were positive for Enterococcus fecal indicator bacteria. So, you really don't want to be drinking water that's polluted with bacteria, of course. So that's kind of a scary statistic. And then on this next slide, you can see a map of where those wells were sampled. So these are sampled closer to the coast. And there were 32 wells that were sampled total. And actually 50% of the wells were positive for total coliform, which is another type of fecal indicator bacteria. And 25% of the wells were positive for Enterococcus. So this is a pretty worrisome situation where there's definitely a risk of disease transmission in the drinking water wells. Because of the hydrology of the area, and during rain, the time from that waste is in your cesspool to it reaching the groundwater can be as little as 8 to 11 hours. So that's a really, really short time. There's basically no time for microbes and things to break down nutrient pollution and pathogen pollution. There's also evidence that cesspools are increasing groundwater nitrate, but luckily not to the extent that it would be dangerous in terms of elevating cancer risk, but it is something to keep an eye on. And I just also want to credit Bob Whittier and the Department of Health for this study and for sharing this map with us. So we also are concerned about what happens once that sewage waste goes from the groundwater into the nearshore ocean. And we're partnering with the Department of Natural Resources Division of Aquatic Resources, or DAR, who are working on a 30 by 30 Holomua initiative, which is basically a goal to manage and protect 30% of Hawaii's coastlines by 2030. And they're in the process of coming up with how to do this. It includes place-based planning, Puna practices, protection and restoration and monitoring. And WAI is partnering with DAR to inform and advise on how wastewater pollution and other types of land-based pollution affect the reefs. So there's some information there on how you can learn more about that initiative. And yeah, just want to, keep in mind that this is both a drinking water and coastal problem.
All right. Thanks, Christina. That was great. So going to technologies and thinking about what could potential alternatives to these cesspools be. Let's go through them together. The first one that people commonly think of is county sewer, municipal sewer that is centralized, and all the waste goes through pipes from each house to a centralized treatment plant. And pulled up the map here so we all can see what the situation with sewer is in the Kea'au and Puna area. It's far away. It's in Hilo. It's 10 miles away, and sewer usually does not extend that far, especially if you can see the extents there. It's right by the bay, but not really all the way to Kea'au, not even mentioning HPP. So it's not really very realistic, but even constructing new sewer comes with challenges because traditional gravity sewer, as we call it, because there are no pumps, it's just flowing downhill, is not ideal because it's very expensive to construct. The pipes, you have to open up the streets and lay it underneath, and then there are also issues with infiltration. where the water, the groundwater, for example, or stormwater enters the pipes and lessens the capacity of these pipes. So it's not the silver bullet that some people may think it is. And also it comes with monthly sewer bills for in perpetuity, essentially. But where sewer is available and the treatment plant is doing well, it is obviously a great solution. Like in urbanized areas, it's a fantastic solution. So I'm not trying to say sewer is always bad, but it shouldn't be the first solution here in this case. So questions may come up such as, what else should I convert my cesspool to then? What about septic? Or what about composting toilets? And let's talk about septic first. Stuart had earlier mentioned it in the shortcomings that it might have, which is that they do require lots of space for the leach field, and also nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus, they still escape the system because it doesn't provide the room for the bacteria that remove those to exist. And so those nitrogen and phosphorus still pollute the water resources. So traditional, conventional septic isn't quite enough. And what about composting toilets? We like to say composting toilets work for a small number of people really well, but it requires a lot of maintenance, know-how how to do it. And even if you're perfect at maintaining a composting toilet, it still means you're handling raw human waste. So it's not without hazards. And so the Department of Health in Hawaii, whom we work closely with, they don't recommend them for the general public especially. And the composted waste can't quite be used in agriculture here anyway. So we don't like to promote them here. We think we have better alternatives that we're going to present now. So going from the toilet scale up, we partner at WAI with a company called Cinderella from Norway, who produce something called an incineration toilet, which is a waterless toilet, no hookup to sewer, no hookup to water. Essentially, it incinerates the waste right in the toilet to a pathogen-free, odorless ash. And it does this either propane-powered or electric powered. These are really great to, for example, replace porta potties, or if you want to add a bathroom somewhere, or you want to add an outhouse, or for remote areas, these have come in really handy. We've installed over 30 of those across the islands, and the people are generally very happy with them. Of course, this also comes with a small behavior change, but toilets haven't been revolutionized for over 100 years, so maybe now is the time. Going through more of our technologies that we partner with, and these are companies that are really excited to bring to Hawaii. This one is called WAI Home, and it's founded by a local young engineer that wanted to sort of invent something that could be retrofitted onto existing septic tanks to improve their treatment. And this is a passive algae-based treatment system that we're currently helping him pilot in Waialua on the North Shore of Oahu. And it's, like I said, currently in the pilot stage, but we're very hopeful about it. And yeah, we'll keep you in the loop about how the testing goes. Then to more established systems that are really, really great, we call them enhanced septic system because they adopt similar techniques where you have treatment first and then a disposal field, but the treatment is just a notch better where it does remove that nitrogen that is otherwise very harmful for the environment. So going from left to right, we have a biofilter, and we partner with a company called Elgin on that one. They use a conventional septic tank, but then the leach field has a layer of wood chips beneath it, which allows certain bacteria that can remove nitrogen to survive. Then we partner with a company called Ridge-to-Reefs, a nonprofit that is going to tell you a lot more about this in a minute. It's a constructed wetland they call bioreactor garden that uses plants and bacteria to treat the wastewater before it enters the leach field. And lastly, the aerobic treatment unit, which we partner with a company called FujiClean. And this is using electricity to create small air bubbles where, again, bacteria can thrive off of those before it enters the leach field. And there's no one solution fits all, but one of these solutions is likely to fit in many places. And we like to highlight that we put the first Elgin system ever in Hawaii in the ground in Kea'au at a local veteran's house, Jarvis, who had a cesspool replaced with the system. And this was donated by Elgin Corporation, and the design was donated by ACSI, local engineering firm. And you can see on the left what the leach field looks like. Essentially, it provides, like I said, the bacteria, the aerobic bacteria, enough time. And especially you can see we brought in the soil so that the rock would not retain the water long enough, but the soil that we brought in does. And you can see on the bottom of the septic tank. So if you want more information about this installation, you can just go by Jarvis's house. We'll tell him you're coming by and you can check it out. And now I'll kick it over to Ridge-to-Reefs for an introduction and brief information about the bioreactor garden and a poll also about the demographics. So Ridge-to-Reefs team, go ahead.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Fal Mantha. I'm the Director of Agriculture and Sustainability at Ridge-to-Reefs. So I'd like to just thank you all again on behalf of our team for joining us. A little bit of background about our organization. You can see here pictured some of our team members. We are primarily a group of scientists with a mission to really catalyze local capacity and develop nature-based solutions. We do this in a kind of community-oriented and community-driven manner, and we really hope to connect human and natural systems in a way that we can make them thrive. We do this primarily by working on food security and sustainable agriculture issues, as well as also dealing with wastewater. So as far as our work, we're based out of Cesspool, Maryland, but we have staff across the mainland, as well as in the Pacific. We work in American Samoa and Palau, and the Caribbean region, where we're primarily focused on, again, wastewater and sustainable ag issues, primarily in Puerto Rico. So for the USDA Technical Assistance and Training Grant, that's under the USDA Rural Development. We're convening local stakeholders and wastewater professionals to establish protocols for implementing, managing, and operating nature-based wastewater treatment solutions. Yoko, if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So here, this just provides kind of an example of some of the projects that we do, some of the work we do, and how we really take a kind of like a Mauka to Makai approach, targeting land-based sources of pollution throughout the watershed. And so some of the images you can see, the image in the top left, that's actually me. I'm about a little over 6 feet, standing in a field of vetiver. As you may have all heard about the groundwater injection issue that went to the Supreme Court. We are currently in Kihei on Maui trialing and testing basically agricultural reuse of wastewater treated to an R1 standard. And we're essentially trying to test its use and as an alternative for groundwater injection. Similarly, to the image to the right of that, you can see, kind of legacy issues from over 100 years of monocultural agriculture. Those are abandoned dirt roads on old pineapple land in West Maui, specifically in the Honokawai watershed, where we use really simple kind of bioengineering solutions, vetiver and native plant-based sediment traps to stop a lot of the sediment from running down from the Mauka areas that are specifically in areas which are hydrologically connected to sensitive coastal ecosystems. Similarly, moving down clockwise to the right is you can see fungal dominated compost and the use of cover crops. These are some of the solutions we use with sustainable agriculture. Really our guiding principle behind this is that soil is a great BMP or best management practice. And so by proper stewardship of the soil, by encouraging the right microorganisms and by keeping the soil covered, we can really minimize sediment issues. Below that image, you can see an example of a cascading treatment wetland system, again, just used to mitigate pollution from agriculture. And lastly, the two images on the bottom left there, one of those, we'll be getting a little more into this with our next slides, but the image on the left is a system that we built that is used to treat effluent from a 27-room hotel in Puerto Rico. And the image to the right of that, we'll be talking more about here in just a moment. That is the Ridge-to-Reefs bioreactor garden. That's more geared towards on-site OSDS effluent. Thank you, Yoko, for moving to the next slide. So for the USDA Rural Development Technical Assistance and Training Program, really that's funded through the Water and Environmental Programs Department. And the two bullet points in blue, basically we're focusing on 5 high priority cesspool areas across the state. Furthermore, we're providing information to interested parties. This is particularly with considerations for upgrading cesspools, either at the individual level or community level for these communities. and that's part of this meeting here today. The three other bullet points are providing technical information and training to practitioners, NGOs, and stakeholders. That event is actually coming up May 27th. It's going to be in Hilo at the ARC from 11:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we hope we can see you all there. Furthermore, we will be providing a technical memo, which is created with input from the stakeholders on some of the issues and challenges, as well as potential solutions and funding opportunities as they pertain to cesspool upgrades and also nature-based solutions. And then where there's interest, we will assist communities with applying for funding opportunities as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then this is just an image to highlight, something that we all know already, is that one of the real challenges in Kea'au, as well as Puna as a whole, is just the volcanic geology. Being so close to the surface can lead to issues with high excavation costs and a variety of other issues that really we have to be aware of when addressing. And we will get into this a little bit further as well as we talk about our specific system, the bioreactor garden. And then this is just a USDA soil map, basically showing a layer for septic tank absorption fields. As you can see, as classified by the USDA, the soil types we have are just in terms of depth to bedrock, depth to saturated zone, the presence of large stones, are all Kea'au soils are really not ideal for on-site disposal. Next slide, please. And so here you can see some images of our solution, or part of our solution, which is really nature-based solutions. We find that they provide flexibility and high levels of water quality treatment for a fraction of the cost of many ATUs and such systems that we see today. And we really do this by using local materials. We use carbonaceous material from invasive species. We use a locally available basalt aggregate and vetiver grass and native plants. The variety of vetiver we use is the sunshine cultivar. It is triploid and it is sterile, so it's not really a concern in terms of invasiveness. And so this system, as you see, was tested by University of Hawai'i. And we designed it for 600 gallons a day, or 3 bedrooms. The image on the top right, you can just kind of see, we really view these as something that can also provide some aesthetic beauty and aesthetic value to the areas where they're located. You can see some hibiscus in those flowers. And again, the bottom image going back to our surface disposal site, that really, we're able to reuse or treat this water at a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to groundwater inject it, or also the environmental impacts that arise from it. So next slide, please. And this just highlights some of the results from our UH study with Dr. Babcock. What we saw over the 6-month test period was 87% removal of total nitrogen, over 80% phosphorus removal. Similarly, we had 96% TSS removal. And towards the end of the study, we were getting 15 to 20% reduction in volume as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is an image of our site we built in Puerto Rico. This system was designed for a 27-room hotel in Puerto Rico. And so really, this is just to illustrate that these sorts of nature-based solutions can be scaled up, scaled down, and they're still very effective at dealing with large quantities of water and really treating it to a high standard. With this system in particular, on most days, it's actually a zero discharge system, which we really feel is the gold standard, where we're essentially using transpiration and evapotranspiration to get rid of all the effluent, to the point where in some of our systems, we don't even get any water in the monitoring wells. So again, this image is just here to illustrate that we can reach those sorts of levels, and look forward to doing so and applying these sorts of solutions. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Phil. And before we move back to the WAI slides, we're gonna do a survey that is required by the federal money that we're using for this awesome grant that we got. So we will launch this poll right now. It's a demographic poll, also anonymous, and Sierra is gonna lead us through it.
Yeah, I'll read these out. So the first question is, what barriers exist for residents of your neighborhood to convert their cesspools?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I brought up the wrong poll. Here you go. Here's the right one, my bad.
Oh, okay. So this first one is English your primary language? Second one, do you consider yourself a person with limited English proficiency? LEP persons are those with a limited ability to read, speak, write, and understand English. Third question is, would you benefit from an English language translation assistance to another language? And we're happy to do that after this if anyone does need this. If you answered yes to question 3, what language would you require translation assistance for? And then 5, please indicate your race, ethnicity required for compliance with USDA regulations. And all of these questions are anonymous. So you can feel free to answer if you feel comfortable, and if not, it's completely optional as well. So we'll leave it open for just a little bit longer.
Thank you, Sierra. I'm glad that Ridge-to-Reefs provided such a nice background photo for everybody who completed it to look at. This is really pretty. And Fal, this is really young vetiver grass, or was it just recently cut? Or can you explain that?
It was manicured for the shot. In Puerto Rico, you have kind of invasive iguanas that tend to eat some of the hibiscus we had planted in there. So we put some protective cages around that as well.
That's awesome. Thank you for explaining.
And one thing to add, Yoko, as well as I noticed when I submitted my survey that it won't let you submit without having all the questions answered. So I think for me, the second to last question, I had to hit other or something along those lines in order to be able to submit that question. So just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. And I see that posted in there too.
Yeah, Michelle mentioned that as well.
I see that, yeah, if you answered, even if you answered no to question 3, you still have to answer 4. So you can just write in other. I'm sorry about that. It's a little technical issue. Thanks for bringing that up, Michelle.
Good point. Yeah, that's something that Zoom should allow us to do, is make questions optional. In this current setting, Zoom polls, everybody has to answer every question. So very good to bring this to our attention. Maybe we could, for the next town hall, we'll add like a line that says, I answered no on the previous question or something like that.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, we got 70% responding, so I'll give it 5 more seconds. And we don't have to read this one out. This can just be for our records, unless somebody's curious. But 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you, everybody. And I believe this is still my slide, Stuart, yeah?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so going back to technology. So what Ridge-to-Reefs was presented was nature-based technology that is very scalable. Now talking mostly about community scale wastewater systems that are also sometimes referred to as cluster systems or decentralized systems. Some people call them package plants. And these all sort of mean the same thing, which is a middle ground between a centralized sewer and individual wastewater systems where every house deals with their wastewater treatment and disposal in their own parcels. So this is a middle ground for around 20 to 200 homes. And the great thing about this scale is that there's an opportunity to reuse liquids and solids when they're very well treated beneficially, rather than just wasting them, sending them out to the sea or putting them in a landfill. And a way to get there to a community scale system like this, there are 2 mechanisms in Hawaii that are available, and they're called Sewer Improvement District, Sewer ID as we sometimes call it, and Community Facilities District, which is CFD as we sometimes call it. And when these slides, the PDF of these slides is sent out to you all, you can click the link in the top right, which will send you to a document that explains exactly the legal background of these and how these are created. But what I'm going to say now is these make it possible for funding from the federal level to come down through the county to individual households and help everybody not only pay as a community with fair shares and a special type of tax that is assessed for this, but also get that funding, the external funding in to make a community system possible. And this is a good way for the whole community, a whole neighborhood, to solve this problem together rather than everybody converting individually and not getting any benefits of the economies of scale. And economies of scale is a great keyword. I'll kick it back over to Stuart.
Yes, thank you. And since we have two council members on there, if you're interested in doing that, you can either create a sewer improvement district by getting, almost 50% of the community to agree to, sign up and do it, or the county council members can vote for an area to create a sewer improvement district. So just want to set that background. So we're working with a number of groups that we're just trying to introduce new, more efficient and affordable technology to Hawaii. And one of those is Cambrian. And so they have a community scale wastewater treatment that's containerized, so they can ship it ready to go to Hawaii and it's ready to hook up into any neighborhood, and it's scalable. They can increase the size of it or move it around, so it's not permanent, which is also a good thing. And it can produce water that is suitable for recycling goals and irrigation, which increasingly the EPA is kind of adamant that we do, because our water supplies, especially in the face of climate change, are dwindling. And there are no upfront costs. So they do what's called sanitation as a service, whereas instead of having to spend millions and millions of dollars setting up a plant, they can set it up so it's financed and people can just pay per the gallon. So pennies on a gallon in monthly fees. And so this is a really good company that, basically takes the wastewater from a community, charges each homeowner a monthly fee. So instead of paying, anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 for a conversion of your cesspool, you could just come in and start paying fees. Cambrian can take that wastewater, turn it into reused water for irrigation, working with landowners. If we have, landowners that are in need, and in certain parts of the Big Island, we know that that's definitely the case. And another partner that we worked with is one that I met through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And this is Biomass Controls. And they can, whereas Cambrian can recycle the liquids in this stream, this waste stream, biomass can turn the solids into biochar. So using this equipment that they have through high heat, low oxygen over time, they can turn this into 100% pathogen-free biochar. And it's a great way to take something that's normally just wasted and trucked to landfills at a very high cost and use it for other uses. It can produce energy and it can process up to about 1 ton of solids per day. And so this shows you, like, the dried sludge can be transformed into biochar, which is a miraculous thing. On the right, it's odorless, pathogen-free, and this is something that can be used as a soil amendment, and it's also a carbon sink. So, the state has certain obligations that we have to be 100% carbon neutral by 2045, and this will help us get to that point. It's much cleaner, much more efficient, saves energy, and the great thing is biochar, which they used a little bit of in the bioreactor gardens, is also, besides being a soil amendment, it helps prevent erosion. And in places where we need soil desperately and more sources of nitrogen and phosphorus. We need it on the land, not in the water going out into the ocean. And so it's a great substitute. And then we have also started working with one of the larger wastewater systems in the country called a RINCO. And this is, they have what's called a Prelos model, which is a pressurized liquid-only sewer. And so what this allows is they have a tank that can be installed in the yard that collects all the solids, but it has a pump, and so it pumps all the liquids, which is the vast majority of the volume of wastewater is liquids. And so it can pump the liquids through very small diameter pipes and, not far underground, and then connect to pipes throughout the community. So you don't need manholes, you don't need super expensive and disruptive sewer, which will, disrupt roadways throughout Hawaii. And so it's much easier, much more efficient, energy efficient to pump. And they also have a program where it can be like sanitation as a service. So you don't pay for all the expensive stuff up front. It can be sanitation as a service. There's a lot less clogging and operation and maintenance costs, and it can fit in any topography. And the great thing is that in areas that are close to the shoreline, sewer systems are always going to get infiltration and inflow. You can't help it. So in areas that experience flooding, inundation, or high rains, there's always going to be inundation into those things. These do not have any infiltration issues. And so you can put them right next to the coast. So that's very valuable. And so if we look at combining all these systems, what we're looking at is a circular economy approach. Right now, we have a sewer system in these huge plants that we spend hundreds of millions of dollars building, transporting these waste just to treat them, and then pump the liquids out to sea that still have a lot of nutrients in them that are not good for the ocean. You want those on land. And then we truck the solids to the landfill. It's an outdated system, and it's highly carbon intensive and releases a lot of greenhouse gases. Whereas throughout history, they have recycled waste and used it for fertilizers. And so, we envision a system where we can recycle all the liquids and use it for irrigation and landscaping, recycle all the solids, use it as a soil amendment, which really helps, grow. And you can also use biochar as a stormwater filtration media. So it can, if you put, these biochar socks in front of storm drains, they will take out a lot of the pollutants that would normally go straight out to sea. And so there are a lot of uses for this. And so this is what we're hoping to really make Hawaii a leader in, to go from being kind of last state in the country to ban cesspools to a leader in sanitation technology. And on the financial end, we are working with the USDA and their Rural Development Office on grants and loans, and they have 502 loans for those that qualify, and then 504 loans and grants for those that are 62 years or older and qualify with their income. I'm going to be very honest with you. We haven't found a lot of partakers of this. It's a complicated process. And so we really need to work with the USDA and really get them to make the process a little bit easier. Sometimes the value of properties in Hawaii disqualify people, or the incomes, but they don't realize, out here that we have such high cost of living. And so, we're working on that, but it's still something for older and lower income folks to take advantage of. The silver lining in all of this, folks, we really appreciate, this is a lot of information you're taking in, is that the bipartisan infrastructure law that just passed is the largest infrastructure bill of its kind in the last, decade, since FDR and, the Great Depression, when we had the works development programs. And so, this is something that there's a lot of money coming, and we just have to make sure that Hawaii is prepared to access that funding. so that we can really bring in the federal funding, as Ashley mentioned at the beginning, to help our homeowners across the state, our neighbors and friends with this transition. So that's, just passed. So we're still trying to figure out exactly how that's going to come through, but most of it will come through the EPA and through their state revolving funds, which are loans. And then we hope to also get a lot of forgivable loans and grants to help low-income homeowners. And especially there's been a priority on disadvantaged communities and tribal and indigenous communities. So I'll turn it over to Yoko.
Thank you. Yes, so this time I'll give you the correct poll, Ciara, I promise. Go ahead and lead people through it.
Yeah, so this one, question number 1, what barriers exist for residents of your neighborhood to convert their cesspools? Question 2, are you concerned about human health and environmental problems posed by cesspools? And then question 3, what value or values would be the biggest motivator for residents of your neighborhood to convert their cesspools? So you can think about your community and what you think people around you.
Pause there 1 second here. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're getting feedback that the poll is not live. Is everybody finding that?
Let's try to stop share it, Yoko, and reshare it, because I see.
Oh, maybe it was because I'm gonna relaunch it.
Yeah.
Okay, try again.
That looks good. Thank you.
Should be up now.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No worries. And maybe we can just go through the beginning and people can answer as you're kind of going through.
Okay, so question 1 again, what barriers exist for residents of your neighborhood to convert their cesspools? Question 2, are you concerned about human health and environmental problems posed by cesspools? 3, what values would be the biggest motivator for residents of your neighborhood to convert their cesspools? And then question 4, if up to 20 grand in financial aid was available, would you be able, or would you be more willing to convert your cesspool in the next 1 to 3 years? Question 5, complete this sentence. I am concerned about water quality as it relates to sewage pollution for, and then it has those 4 answers there.
Thank you, Ciara. I'll let you read out the results here in a second. We got about 50% responded. Y'all are very fast. Thank you so much for taking part in this. This is really crucial information for us and for the folks that are helping us put this grant together. And appreciate it that you're taking part in this. We got 70% responded, so we'll give it another 10 seconds. Oh, 1 person unresponded again. Maybe they wanted to change it. Okay, we'll do 3. There we go, 70% again. 3, 2, 1. And go ahead, Ciara.
Okay, so you can see the answers here. We have what barriers exist, and I think the cost is definitely outweighing the rest of the answers. The costs with I think this, you can answer multiple answers in this one. So 100% said the cost, 48% said construction impact on property, 43 also said I don't know how to start the process. 17% said I don't feel that it's important. So this is actually really helpful information, because that 43%, those 10 people that don't know how to start the process, we can definitely help you out there. And then question 2, 87% answered yes, that they're concerned about the human health and environmental problems posed to cesspools. 9% said they need more information. 1% said no. So we really appreciate that feedback. And to know that, you know, people care about their community and their environment. Question 3, the biggest motivators to convert their neighborhood cesspools. This one is pretty evenly spread out. So 61% with clean environment, 52% public health, 48% improved property value, 52% regulation, law abiding. And then 9% said none of the above, which we would be interested in if there was other reasons why people would want to be converting. And then if $20,000 was available, would you be willing to convert your cesspool? 52% yes, said yes, 4% said no, 39% said maybe, and then 4% said I don't own a home with a cesspool. And then lastly, I'm concerned about water quality as it regards to sewage pollution. 70% said swimming, 70% also said coral reef health, 65% said drinking water, and 65% said fishing and traditional practices. So yeah, the sewage and the pollution there is very prominent, and again, we're happy to see that you guys are concerned about that.
Thank you, Sierra. So we're going to start our Q&A process here. But before we do, and we will send this recording out to you along with the slide deck, all those who participated. And if a number of you said in the chat, you know, people who couldn't attend, if you could forward these to folks and friends and family that you know would be interested, we'd appreciate it. We'd love to get feedback. And these are some of the resources that we have. For those who are not sure how to begin the process, we have this tiny URL for cesspool conversion. You can kind of tell us about your property, and we have charts that kind of allow you to go through the process on our potty portal. We don't have our potty portal listed, but it's basically vicleanwater.org/potty portal. And that's a great first step for anyone. We can put that in the chat to learn more about this. You can also have access information from DOH and the EPA at these links here, and access loan applications at USDA at this link. And then there's other information at the Water Resources Research Center and Hawaii Sea Grant. But we have all of these links on our website. So if you remember one thing, just remember vicleanwater.org, and you can access any of these. We really want to make it easier for people because we know it is a very difficult process. A lot of people didn't even know if they have cesspools, and much less, you know, the human health threats and the environmental risk that they pose. So we're going to open it up for chat and for questions. And really, I want to thank again Representative Ilagan and Council members Kierkiewicz and Kleinfelder for joining us. And also want to introduce Ramsey Mansour, the director of the County Department of Environmental Management. And we have the Ridge-to-Reefs team and our team to answer questions. So Ramsey, would you like to say a few words while we begin, and people can put things in the chat as well, questions?
Sure. A great presentation, by the way. You guys have done a great job sharing with us all the options available and the funding sources that people could tap into. Kudos to all of you guys. What a job. Great job.
Mahalo. Appreciate it. We have some questions that were asked earlier that we can return to. Ashley, and please feel free to raise your hand or put questions in the chat. So I'll turn it over to Ashley.
Thanks, Seward. Really good presentation. You know, because we have our Director of Environmental Management on, sorry, Ramsey, to put you on the spot like this, especially because it's being recorded, but just really curious to see if you would be interested or if it's even possible for us to be piloting some of the initiatives that WAI and its partners are doing on other islands. I know that Gail Clark from ASC offered up, you know, her space to pilot some of these initiatives, but what is the appetite or even potential of DEM to be piloting some of what has been presented tonight?
I think definitely there is a potential partnership to be able to pilot some of these programs. As long as we have the funding. As you know, Ashley, our major challenge here on the island in trying to secure some funding even for the little things that my department does. But yeah, if we could team up with WAI and somehow get a grant and do one of the pilot program and get some of these innovative ideas being piloted so we could do some of the analysis on it and the results, that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. And I had a follow-up question. There was some, you know, talk back and forth, Christina and myself, on the USDA grant program and it not being very successful in pushing money out in the community. I know it's possible to provide grants. There was money the federal government was doing during COVID to ensure that people had money to pay rent and mortgage. Those were essentially grants. There were also grants to small business. So I don't know if anybody in the WAI team would be willing to work with our office or the county in general to see what federal programs are out there that we can leverage in order to create a similar program that would essentially grant these systems to our local families.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Ashley. We would love to work with you on it. And, you know, the folks at USDA have been very helpful. They're very nice. I think they're constrained by a lot of systemic things in the past. And like you said, you know, during COVID, we've all had to pivot, and during crises like this, we have to pivot and just make sure that the funding is more available so agencies like USDA can get that. So yeah, we would love to work with you on that. Mahalo, and I'll pass it to Matt, and then we'll go to Gail.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Yeah, great presentation by your team. You know, I think this is again for Ramsey, and then probably follow up from the WAI team. What I've come to learn, you know, any conversions that are happening here usually require the removal, well, actually, sorry, the installation of a new septic system or one of the systems you presented tonight. But you have the leftover cesspool. Now you have this interesting, you know, problem you have to deal with. You have a large cement, basically canister in the yard with a cement lid on top. And right now, if you do a septic conversion, you have to fill it in and then cap it again. And so you're left with this kind of big cement, you know, bomb shelter in your backyard in a sense. But something that Ramsey and I kind of mentioned off the cuff in a meeting a long time ago was, could we use that existing cesspool in some form of a leach field or some form of a conversion, you know? And I'm looking at the systems that you're offering and kind of just trying to wrap my head around the different things that I've seen tonight. You know, is there a way to incorporate some of the alternatives that you've offered tonight and using these cesspools as a way to, you know, do a secondary treatment on the waters coming out of the wastewater system? You know, I'm just trying to wrap my head around how we can kind of take care of this issue that you have when you do a cesspool conversion and how to use that to our advantage, if any. And if there's no answer, there's no answer, but at least I put it out there.
No, it's a great question, Matt. You know, maybe Yoko, if you want to take a shot at that,
Yeah.
and you know, Val can maybe jump in as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So great question. In terms of cesspools, there are multiple challenges to reuse them, but it truly is the holy grail if you can figure out a way to reuse these cesspools in a productive way that would save money that would usually be spent on excavation of a leach field, and it would also prevent you from having to backfill it. Right now, the reason that cesspools are most often backfilled are the following. They're kind of deep, they're between 10 and 30 feet deep, which means they're closer to groundwater. And we want to stay shallow with our wastewater so that there's as much distance for soil and bacteria to filter it before it enters the groundwater. However, there are some cesspools that are not close to groundwater, and so those could be effectively reused. Another challenge is the structural integrity. Cesspools were dug between the year 1900 and 2014, so there's a huge discrepancy in how structurally sound they are. Some of them are modern, where they're made out of concrete rings that are precast. Those are, like you said, those are basically bomb shelters. And there are other ones that are just busted into the rock or just dug into the clay. Some use sandstone tiles, some use bricks. They're all very, very different. And so who can guarantee that it won't collapse when somebody drives on it accidentally, for example? So there would have to be a way to make sure that it's structurally sound. And lastly, it is kind of comfortable at this point to use the excavated soil that you excavate for the leach field to backfill the cesspool, so that is kind of convenient. But if we can somehow avoid having to dig a leach field in the first place, then yes, that would be the holy grail. We're working on that. That's a great idea.
And yeah, Stuart, just to add to that, and Yoko, thank you so much for that detailed kind of explanation. You really hit the nail on the head with some of these issues. I would just say the Ridge-to-Reefs team has discussed this, in detail as well. And one thing I'd like to add to everything Yoko said is, these cesspools all tend to have different geometries, as he said, different depth, different width, aspect ratios. But in terms of the idea of using that space for additional treatment, in practice, it definitely can be done. The same media that we use for our bioreactor gardens can be loaded into these cesspools, provided that the conditions Yoko mentioned are met. So just want to thank you again for that explanation, and agree that would absolutely be the holy grail.
Yeah. Yes. And I think, Ron, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I do. And I just want to thank you for reminding us about the huge bipartisan infrastructure bill and the money that may be available to us. That's fantastic. And I also, you answered a question that I don't need to ask, I think, about infiltration of seawater as a result of sea level rise for some of our low-lying communities. And there's maps which indicate how much that's going to happen. And I think your liquid-only plumped plan in small pipes is a brilliant way to serve communities that may be affected like that. The question I have, I did put it in the chat, but a neighbor of mine here in Volcano Village is selling a house. And she's under the impression that she doesn't have to do a cesspool conversion because she's grandfathered. The house been here a long time, many decades. I don't know if she's got a misinterpretation of the current law or here in Hawaii County or not. Could you give us a read on that?
Yes. Thank you. I can answer that, but want to welcome Ramsey or Representative Ilagan. Anybody wants to take a shot at it? They are not grandfathered. Cesspools, all cesspools have to be converted according to Act 125 by 2050. And so that's why we were really pushing for the point of sale conversion bill. So when a property is sold and there's a lot of money on the table, they can negotiate between buyer seller, and within a year or two, it's up to we've been working with realtors to try to figure this out, that there's just an agreement they have to do that. Because part of what happens is when you're getting 30-year mortgages going forward, you're going up against the deadline. So from 2020 on, any 30-year mortgages you're going up against that deadline. And so there has to be some kind of commitment. So even bankers are starting to say, hey, this is something we need to take care of. And there are a number of federal loans, for veterans and such, where they do want you to convert the cesspool. Right now, they don't have to do it. She wouldn't have to do it. But one of the recommendations we think that's going to be coming out of the cesspool conversion working group is a bill like this, because so many other states have it. It just makes sense. When you're selling a property, if you have a substandard sanitation system, it would be like having a hole in the roof and not fixing it. You just need to fix these things as part of it.
Stuart, in addition to that, I guess even if you end up doing any purchase transaction, I think right now real estate agents have to disclose. It's part of the disclosure that the house is on a cesspool, so the buyer is aware that it may become liability as he or she purchased that property.
Yeah, that's correct, Ramsey. It is in our contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, and that kind of encourages the sellers to do the conversion, so they could sell the house without that disclosure, because it may discourage buyers.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Good answers.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. And one question that I'll just mention that Patty had put up there was, are all these wastewater treatment options permitted in Hawaii County? Can we get a permit to construct, install? I'll let Yoko further answer this, but all of these systems are generally NSF approved, National Sanitation Foundation, or the similar Hawaii standard that's based on that. Yoko, do you want to add anything to that? Or
Yeah, the Val can maybe answer this most perfectly, but I'll kick him off here. The Ridge-to-Reefs bioreactor garden underwent highly successfully, like you described, its testing, and we're anticipating full approval within the next few weeks. What do you say, Val?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Yoko. I think this was judged or tested rather according to those protocols we mentioned earlier, namely NSF 245 and NSF 40. And in many cases, and for most of the parameters, we actually outperformed the ATUs that it was compared to. So just wanted to reiterate that as well and show that nature-based solutions can be just as effective as engineered solutions.
And the benefit is, again, with the manufactured solutions like ATUs, aerobic treatment units, they have to be, you have to do maintenance twice a year, and then you pay utility costs. And so the benefits of having a nature-based system is that once you put it in the ground, it basically takes care of itself and without any further cost. And so we think it's a much more affordable and reliable system. Matt.
Thank you. Are there any of these alternatives? I didn't see any mentioned tonight, but that would take the gases from the system and make that move towards using the gases coming off of the waste systems to be used back into the household, like a propane alternative?
Yeah, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. I think it's Mojo had mentioned that same thing, and about the biogas, home biogas, which I'm seeing a lot of on social media, where they take the methane and then cook with it. I don't think that's allowed in Hawaii, where you're allowed to cook with the methane. Yoko can maybe confirm whether that's true, but yeah, generally the Department of Health, as was mentioned earlier, has kind of warranted they have to be careful about systems where people are handling raw waste and these gases. But Yoko, I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, the National Sanitation Foundation has a standard 41 for composting toilets. And as far as I know, the only two brands that are permitted are Sunmar and I always pronounce this one, Clivus Multrum. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced. It's certainly a fun name. But I think the home biogas one that you posted is not permitted yet. But that doesn't mean that it will never be. Maybe we will get there eventually, and we would love to see one more arrow added to our quiver. And Fal, looks like Fal had
Oh, yeah, I was just, Yoko, I was just going to add that I believe that you would run into that same problem as with the composting toilet, where for food scraps, it's one thing, but for human waste, I think it's a little bit of a different scenario, and that digestate would still be considered hazardous waste. And I wonder, Yoko, the two systems that you mentioned, do you know if those use I'd imagine they use like a thermophilic process to destroy any pathogens, and that's why they're allowed, or could you elaborate?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments?
I guess I just had a quick follow-up question to the with the biogas. It has a track record in multiple countries as a healthy and safe toilet solution. Would that in any way, shape, or form be useful information that could be submitted to the relevant departments for certification? Because it's got a good track record.
Yeah.
International.
Yeah, that's a very good point. What we've found is the Department of Health tends to be very, very conservative when it comes to approving new systems. And so that's why it's been, something that's been challenging, that we have to really prove to them every worst case scenario, because, in their defense, they have to make sure no one gets sick from these, no one blows up cooking with biogas, and things like that. And so they have to assume worst case scenarios, but it's also can be challenging when you're trying to introduce new technology that's successful elsewhere. And so we're, trying to balance their needs for safety and health with the need to come up with more efficient and affordable solutions. Yeah.
Yeah, and like Stuart said, there are national processes offered by National Sanitation Foundation and statewide offered by UH Manoa, where you can get these certifications. So if you want to let that company know or send us their contact information, and we'll tell them how to get registered so that they can sell their units here openly, and anybody who wants one can get one.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, basically, we're trying to serve as a clearinghouse for, companies across the country, are approaching us, and we kind of do vetting to see if they're solid companies and if they have good solutions and proven research and testing. And then, if we really think they're good, then we try to help them along, just so homeowners have more options to choose from. And so, it's something that we're really at a turning point in Hawaii, because we relied on these systems for so long, and now all the research is pointing that they do really pose health and environmental risks that we just can't allow. And when it was a rural development and homes were far away and there weren't a lot of wells close, early on when we didn't know better, it was kind of understandable. Now it's really not. So we just have to work to start, providing solutions for this, and financial resources, most importantly, to help, as our legislators have mentioned. As we wrap up, any final thoughts from our legislators?
Hey, Stuart. I definitely want to echo what you just said, because I have been having a conversation with Department of Health and trying to figure out, like what you mentioned, having more options for homeowners. And there are they are very hesitant to certify those innovative systems, and they continue to push that septic tanks are the most cheapest option that's available currently. And I've been looking and trying to figure out a way to reuse solid waste from our system or in our flow, to see if we could use that recyclable waste to build these septic tanks
Mhm.
and figure out some sort of circular way where we could address that price point. But I don't know what it is. But I like, by the way, great presentation. Thank you for providing all these options. I definitely want to continue working with you to figure out and provide more options for the community. And thank you for bringing all these options to us.
Thank you. We really appreciate you all coming together. Every one of you who's interested in this and can help us spread the word. You know, it's a difficult process for sure, but it's also exciting because, you know, when it comes to improving our health and our conditions and basically our bottom line with tourism, we have to make sure our waters remain pristine and that it's something that we can really take pride in. And so I think, you know, this is, we're on the path. And if we work together and I think let DOH know, the wastewater branch, that we need more solutions and they need more people, frankly, to help process, you know, permits and such. Because right now we're doing about 150 conversions, cesspool conversions a year. To meet the deadline to convert all 88,000, we're going to have to do about 3,000 conversions a year. So one good news that we'll end on, and you know, we'll have a quick word from Ron, and then we'll end, is that we just found out that we worked with a group of people to do workforce development in the wastewater sector, and we were just approved a group to do for 1 million through Senator Hirono's office to do workforce development through the community colleges, because we're going to need a lot more workers and people in this field, these green jobs, to help with that conversion process. So we'd love to stay in touch with you all and work with you all. Ron, we'll get a quick word from you and then from our council members, and we'll bring it to a close.
Thank you, Stuart. You know, just a final thought that I have here. We're faced with a municipal sewer plant in Kea'au that's broken and falling down, and it's going to, you know, take a lot of money to fix. And Mayor Roth is working on it. Maybe, you know, the county council as well. Is there any? Is it too late to get something beautiful and innovative like you're presenting tonight to help out in that regard?
Yeah, you know, we're borrowing success stories from around the world. And so like Biomass Controls is ironically working in a town called WAI, India, spelled the same way. And so we're, you know, the incineration toilet is from Norway. We're really looking around the world for solutions. And people love Hawaii so much, they're eager to kind of, you know, they want to help. So,
thank you.
Yeah, we're in the midst of a sanitation revolution, and we like to joke that we're making sanitation sexy again. Not that it was ever sexy, but that's our inside joke. Council members, any final words from you all?
Just thanks again for the opportunity, Stuart and team. Really great information, and let's stay in touch on a couple of things that we touched on. You know, Director Mansour said he is interested in exploring pilot initiatives, so want to make sure that we are following through on that. And I do want to work with you to see if there are ways in which we can get USDA to be a little bit more flexible, or at least come up with products that work for our community. So thanks again.
My pleasure. Matt? Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, you know, just a great presentation tonight. And I think some of your first infographics really were telling, you know, the amount of cesspools we have specifically, I mean, just specifically in the Kea'au area, and the amount of conversions that need to happen and the public health issues that we face, you know, it's very telling. So thank you for what you did tonight. Appreciate it. And I look forward to being, you know, one of those legislators that actually helps effect some change going forward with you guys. So mahalo again for your whole team. Great job.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate all your support, each and every one of you that showed up, and we'll share this. We will send the presentation out and the recording. I want to thank the Ridge-to-Reefs team for joining us. They're coming in from the East Coast, so they're heroes for staying up so late. as well as our council members and Representative Ilagan and Ramzi Mansour he's been such an innovative partner, and he's really open to change and been embracing it.
Yeah.
And then, to my team, which is just, I'm so grateful to have such a competent and talented team, but it's also very fun to work with. Christina, thank you for streaming in all the way from Guatemala. Thank you all again. We will be in touch soon, and have a good night.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha.